Hello and welcome to my hobby bench yet again. So on the table today I've got, as you can see, I've got an OS engine, and this just so happens to be my own personal OS FS61 engine. This is the pre-surpass version of their 4-stroke engine. Now this is an engine that happened to be given to me by a local modeler about a year ago. His name is Bruce, and he told me that this engine was actually owned by the late George R. Chase, Wisconsin. I don't know if he was a Wisconsin native, but he's in the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame. So this engine is in fantastic shape. I did not get a chance last summer to run it like I really wanted to, but it is going to be in line. It's right in line right now to get an upgrade to some Boca bearings. But along that process of getting to there, I'm going to be using this as a test bed to test out some different and upgraded versions of tools that Bill had sent to me. The first one being this new cam bearing insertion tool that Bill made for me, and this is one where you can actually set the depth of the bearing going in the engine. I've not had a chance to use this engine or this tool yet, so I'm going to use that. And he gave me some tweezers to utilize with this new tool, which is a valve spring compression tool or a valve removal tool that he made specifically to work well on these pre-surpass style engines and possibly some other engines like maybe an Enya engine also. We'll see. So I'm going to be using the head here. Not like these valves probably are in need of being dropped or replaced, or the springs or anything like that, but just to demonstrate this, because I don't currently have any other customer engines that I can do this with. And of course, obviously, we've got our but our cam bearing removal tool. This is a model number 2. I won't actually be using this because I'm still continuing to test the first one for longevity. So that's what the plan is. So I'm going to basically just begin the disassembly process off camera, and when I get to interesting points, or if I see anything interesting with this engine, I'll turn the camera back on. But otherwise, what I'll be doing is probably using maybe an easy out extraction mechanism to pull the piston pin out. So piston pin removal will be something that I'm looking at. Removing of these bearings will be things that I'll be looking at. So like I said, this engine is in really fantastic shape, so I don't anticipate much of an issue with piston pin removal, but that's why we make the videos. So I'm going to shut the camera off and begin the disassembly of this engine, and I'll pick it up again when we get to the items of note. Okay, so I'm at a point here where I've got most of this engine disassembled, and I think I mentioned in the first segment that this engine was in very, very good condition. It had been run, because when I got it, there was evidence of that on the little pressure adapter that was on the header, and it took a little bit of cleaning to get that cleaned up. I don't have that here with me to show you, but I think if you go back and find that other video about when I got this engine, it shows it there. But this engine was in perfect shape. I mean, like I said, it had been run, but not much. I have done nothing to this. I haven't cleaned it or anything. And I guess this is about as close to disassembling a new engine as you can get. Here's what the cam bearing inside the cover looks like. And so these last few times I've done this style of engine, in fact, I just finished an FS61. A new customer, basically just sent me the crankcase. It was all disassembled. He didn't have the sleeve in it. He sent me the crankcase because he was having a hard time getting the cover off. And of course, without the cover off, you can't get anything else off. So he sent it to me with the cover on, bearings installed, crankshaft still installed, and piston pin still installed. And that engine had sat for 30 years. So that was really challenging. So I've had issues lately with these cam covers coming off, and it's just that it's not that it rusts together, but something about this metal joint here that gets stuck on there. And it just doesn't want to come apart at all. I mean, you can sit there and spin this thing, not that easily. You can spin it while it's on there, but I was unable to get it to come off. And so what I've had to do lately is employ a technique of just putting a razor blade in there and kind of pounding it in between there and just kind of doing a wiggle thing to start lifting it up. And of course, heating and oiling is a big part of that also. But I would rotate it around, put the razor blade in there, and then I would also use a really thin driver like this and just kind of get up under there. I'll simulate it here and just kind of set it like this and just kind of very lightly do this type of thing where I'm kind of levering it and then rotate it, lever it just very lightly, because you don't want to break those tabs off, and eventually you'd start to see do this, and as you keep doing that, then you can finally get it to come off. Fortunately, as you can see with this engine, I didn't have that issue, but 70 Surpass engine I've just done in the last month, that FS61 270 Surpasses. So I mean, these are the major issues that you have with these. Now, in the past, every time I've ever pulled a piston pin out like this from an engine, I've always just pulled the sleeve completely out. Why I've always done that, I cannot explain, because it doesn't make sense now that I think about it in hindsight. But my buddy Bill said, well, don't do that. Just pull the sleeve out enough just to expose the piston pin in the hole and leave it in there, and then that way you're not getting so much side-to-side movement on the piston, and it's a little bit easier on things. But so what I was expecting, well, I don't know why I was expecting it, because this engine is in perfect shape. I thought that I was going to be able to demonstrate using this Easy Out tool that I got just recently, and that was shown in an engine talk video. But this is what I actually managed to get that last piston pin out from that FS61 that I just sent back yesterday or the day before. And it just took a lot of heat, a lot of heat. And it wasn't like it was rusted or anything. This is a bit in the engine. I had put it through several ultrasonic cleanings. I mean, I was doing everything. I was really pulling my hair out. And then I finally just started to, and the owner had sent me it. He had already pushed the piston pin this way, because he pulled this sleeve all the way out. So he had pushed this piston pin out, and the retainer, the piston retainer, was starting to deform. So it was really creating more of an issue trying to pull it back in there. So I had to get in there with an X-Acto blade and cut that into that retainer off, so that then I could then pull it, because any amount of resistance going back this way, even if it's just that piston retainer, is going to just make things harder. So the sacrifice was, he's got a new piston pin that comes with those retainers, but we lost the piston or the retainer on that end. But I thought, and it ended up being this Easy Out that I used, and I got it out with that. So this one, I just threaded this servo screw in here, and because of the condition of this engine, that piston pin just came out. I mean, how could it be any easier than that? Now, if you look closely at this piston pin, the one I just extracted from that customer's engine didn't look any different than this. It wasn't like it was all rusty or dark or anything. They all look like this, but it just is a matter of the tight tolerances of this pin to the fitment of the holes in the boss, that it's just, I don't know if it's just a slight amount of galling that can occur over time, sitting for over time, or what. But that's what that was. But that piston pin didn't look any different than this. It looked fine. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of drama here, and quite honestly, I'm thankful for that, because I've kind of had enough drama with these engines to last me for a while. And see, I just pulled that out, and that came out with the piston came out in the sleeve, so that's fine. And look, this is uncleaned. This is how low a time this engine is. Now, the other question is, well, does it really need bearings replaced? Well, of course it doesn't need bearings replaced, but I'm going to do that because that's part of what I'm doing with Boca. And by the time I'm done, every single engine I own, and many other people's engines, will have been upgraded to a nice set of Boca bearings. Now, here's one thing I noticed, or I just found out also, which it wasn't something I didn't really know, it's just something I hadn't really thought about. This connecting rod for the FS61 is the same part number as for the FS91 Surpass. So they both have the exact same connecting rod. So if you get into a situation where you're unable to get your piston pin out, and you have to destructively remove it to get the piston out and get your bearings changed, the part number for 91 Surpass and FS61 are the same. And as of today, when I was looking on eBay, there were numerous listings for connecting rods. They're like $26 a piece, so it's not bad, not a bad price. And it's nice to know that for an engine this old, and for the Surpass 91 Surpass, that those are still available, because when it comes to OS parts, so many are not available anymore. And it's so nice that I might actually just invest in one just to have on hand. But so that's all there is to this. Now, I will be probably making a whole other segment on the bearing extraction, because I plan on using this engine as the video, as the Boca bearing extraction video. But I'll also probably be making a separate one to show Bill's new tool on how to extract the valves and the valve springs and retainers and stuff from this style engine. Now, these engines, the pre-Surpass engines, where you've got most of the, or all of the valve train encapsulated in here, are really a pain in the ass. I mean, so this is not a task I look forward to doing. And you may say, well, it still has just those simple little C-clips as the retainers, and thankfully it does, because Enya engines have those split collets, the tapered split collets that are really small. And even with Bill's tool, I've done one of those. That's still not fun. So this is not fun just because of the fact that it's hard to get in there. I mean, and do that. But with Bill's tool and those new tweezers that are non-magnetic, that's what I'm going to be evaluating when I get to that. So I don't know. That'll probably be in a day or two when I do that, and probably be later this week when I get around to making the video for this. Now, this is also another thing that's beautiful, is lately I've been having some of these older engines where I have some issues getting that drive hub off and the Woodruff key out. But in this instance, this engine is in such good shape that it's a complete non-issue here. So that's our video for today. Look forward to the next segments where I remove the bearings, and then when I actually demonstrate Bill's new latest upgrade to his valve spring or valve removal tool.